Alright, continuing where I left off. When you're sanding, the main thing you want to do is try to get the part as smooth as possible. So I'm starting here with fairly high grit, and you want to try and just sand in more or less circular motion, alternating back and forth. This helps to keep the sanding lines down, or basically means you're, for most part, not going to be sanding the exact same spot. As you can see, after just very short work, where the part, at least where the pour stub was, has been more or less sanded down. Now, I'm going to do this fairly quickly over the rest of this part just to get it done. There's one thing you'll quickly notice when you're building model kits is just the amount of time involved, as it can quickly just start to add up, and before you know it, what seemed like only about a few minutes, it turns into hours, and yeah. But even with something, a simple build like this. Now that I've done the major part of the sanding, go back over it again with a finer grit. This helps ensure smoothness and also get rid of any marks, and ultimately will get the part smooth and more or less look like there never was a pour stub. Again, doing this fairly quickly just to save some time. Yeah, typically you won't need to do too much heavy sanding with plastic kits, as the plastic is a fairly soft material. With resin kits, definitely expect to do a lot of sanding and resanding and still more sanding, as you'll quickly realize that you'll just have to keep going back and sometimes have to touch up a spot several times to get it right. Now, for this, I'm only going to go down to 800 grit, because I really don't see the need to go beyond that for this. Sometimes, though, you may need to go to still higher grits. I believe the highest grit I own is 12,000, but I only really use that for if I'm having to fix a seam on a clear part, because otherwise it's just a waste of paper, sandpaper in my opinion. Alright, so I got, if you look, a lot of the, aside from the dust, you can see that more or less the pour stub is gone, and looks as though it never was. Alright, so that's that. Okay. Yeah. Another thing you'll notice is that typically model building is fairly quiet. Just trying to think of stuff to talk about during these things is... Another thing you'll want to be careful of is sometimes parts will pop off the runners in the box sometimes. Doesn't happens now and again, but otherwise this can be both a good and a bad thing, as sometimes it might break in a way that's not advantageous to you. Alright. Again, you want to just get glue in there, try to get both sides of the seam so that it'll cure up on you nice and good. Alright. Now, typically with glues like this, it'll be about a couple hours before you really can go back in on them and fix them up again. But that's one of the unfortunate things about modeling, is that, again, it does take time, just because nature of what you're using. Why super glue is a lot faster. For stuff like this, it's not as well suited, just because it's a little harder to get in and do accurately. Okay. Now again, at this point, you want to try to be careful with the glue, not to get it everywhere, but since we are going to sand it down, any excess meltage or bonding is going to get fixed anyway. So and then you want to wait a second or two before you smash them and get together, just to give glue it a minute or two just to activate. And alright, so that again, what's nice about Bandai kits is that if you want to, you can just pretty much shake and bake and just trim them off trees, put them together, and that's about it. They're ready to go like that. Which, if you want, just do it basic build, it's good, but if you want to do a more detailed build, it still leaves plenty of room for that. And I think I'm just about at time, so this will looks like going on the part 3.